Hello everyone, we are the students of University of Lucknow pursuing MCom in Applied Economics, and today we are going to tell you about US dollar and how it came into power.
Every powerful empire has a symbol. For Rome, it was the legion. For Britain, it was the navy. And for the United States, it became the dollar. This is not just the story of a currency, it's the story of how power, war, politics, and technology lifted the US dollar from local paper to the financial heartbeat of the entire world. In 1700, Americans used anything they could find: British pounds, Spanish silver coins, even tobacco certificates. Different regions had different money. Prices changed from town to town. Trade was messy. So, in 1792, the US official created the dollar. It was based on the Spanish silver dollar, the most trusted coin at that time. This was more than a currency. It was the foundation of a future economic empire.
By 1900, the world followed the gold standard. Every currency had to be backed by a specific amount of gold. It was simple and powerful. Gold equals to trust, and trust is equals to stable money. The US had huge gold reserves and a fast-growing economy. This made the dollar one of the most reliable currencies before the World War I.
World War I shattered the old financial order. European nations drained their gold reserves, borrowed heavily, and struggled to keep their currencies stable. Meanwhile, the United States stayed out of the war for years and became the world's supplier of food, weapons, steel, and raw materials. Europe owed America billions. For the first time, global financial power began shifting away from Europe and towards the United States and towards the dollar.
The rise begins 1920s, the Roaring Twenties. While World War I gave the US dollar its first opportunity, the 1920s was the decade where it truly began to overtake the British pound, sterling, as the world's leading currency. This era is often called the Roaring Twenties. Because of the massive economic boom in the US, the dollar overtakes the pound. For Europe was still recovering from the war and had high inflation. The US dollar was stable, backed by gold, and US economy was growing rapidly. The circular flow of money, the Dawes Plan. The US became the world's banker during the decade. A key example is the Dawes Plan 1924. How it worked? The US lent millions of dollars to Germany to help them rebuild their economy.
The Great Depression destroyed economies worldwide. Thousands of banks collapsed. Unemployment skyrocketed. Confidence in money evaporated. Countries abandoned the gold standard one by one. In 1933, the US government restructured the dollar. Gold convertibility was restricted. The value of gold was adjusted and the dollar was strengthened. Under the government oversight, these reforms helped the US recover faster than most countries and increased America's leverage over the global system.
1944 changed everything. Representatives of 44 nations meet in New Hampshire to build a new financial system for the post-war world. They decided to shape the next 80 years. The US dollar would be the world's primary reserve currency. Every currency would back to the dollar. The dollar alone would be the convertible into gold. Institutions like IMF and World Bank would stabilize the global system. Why the dollar? Because in 1944, the US owned the two-thirds of the world's gold and had the strongest economy on the planet. For this movement onwards, global trade run on dollars, global loans run on dollars, global finance depend on the dollar.
The post-war world needed rebuilding. Europe, Japan, and many other regions were devastated. US money, US loans, US aid, US investment flowed everywhere. To rebuild factories, buy machinery, or stabilize currencies, nations needed dollars. This period also saw the rise of international trade agreements. American multinational companies, US-led financial institutions, US military presence worldwide. Every piece reinforced the dollar's global role.
By the late 1960s, the US printed more dollars than it had gold. Other countries noticed and demanded gold in exchange for dollars, especially France. The US faced a crisis. If it kept giving away gold, it would run out. So, in 1971, President Richard Nixon announced the Nixon shock. The dollar would no longer be tied to gold. The entire Bretton Woods system collapsed overnight. But instead of losing dominance, a global fiat currency used, the dollar transformed into something even more powerful everywhere, simply because in the world trusted it and relied on it.
To prevent collapse, the US executed a brilliant geopolitical strategy. It negotiated with Saudi Arabia and other OPEC nations, priced your oil only in US dollars. In return, you will protect your security and support your economics. OPEC agreed. This created the petrodollar system. Any country wanting oil needed dollars global. Energy markets run entirely on dollars. Countries store their wealth in US Treasury bonds. Oil became the new backing for your dollar, replacing gold.
1990 brought global trade deal, the rise of internet and massive economic integration. Millions of businesses worldwide trade in dollars. Central bank held dollar as reserve. Global debt was issued in dollars. The fall of Soviet Union also left the US as world's only superpower, further cementing the dollar's position.
With digital banking and electronic payments, the dollar moved at the speed of light. Whenever global uncertainty hit the dot-com crash, wars, or the 2008 financial crisis, investors rushed to buy US dollars and US Treasury bonds. Why do you ask? Because the dollar was seen as the safest investment on earth. Even when America caused the 2008 crisis, the world still trusted the dollar more than anything else. Now, that's power.
Today, the dollar faces new challenges. China's rise, attempt to trade in yuan, euros, or rupees, digital currencies, and cryptocurrencies. Geopolitical tensions call for a multipolar financial world. But despite all of this, the dollar remains unmatched. Over 80% of global trade is still invoiced in dollars. Nearly 60% of global reserves are held in dollars. Major commodities like oil, gas, metals are priced in dollars. Most international loans and debts are in dollars. And in every crisis, people still run towards the dollar. The US dollar's rise wasn't an accident. It was built through war, diplomacy, strategy, innovation, and the world's trust. From the gold standards to the petrodollar to the digital age, the dollar became more than money. It became the backbone of the global economy, and its story is still unfolding.